I thought I had it all. A loyal wife, a beautiful home, and a life most men would envy. But what I didn't realize was that I was about to throw it all away with my own hands. That's how my story begins. Not with someone else's betrayal, but with mine. And if you stay with me, you'll understand how my arrogance cost me the only person who ever truly loved me. Before I take you deeper into my story, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next. My name is Michael Turner. I'm 50 now, but back when this story began, I was in my mid-30s, living what looked like the perfect life. I had a decent job, a cozy home, and a wife who loved me more than anything. Her name was Sarah, and I had been married for nearly a decade. She was the kind of woman who always put others before herself. She worked as a nurse, often, coming home late, exhausted, but still smiling, still asking me if I'd eaten, still making sure I was okay before she even thought about herself. I wish I could tell you that I appreciated her then, that I held on tight to the treasure she was. But the truth is, I didn't. At first, I loved her deeply. I still remember those first years of marriage, how she would fall asleep on my shoulder while we watched TV, or how she would whisper, "We're going to make it through anything, Michael." And we did, for a while. We struggled financially, we sacrificed, we worked hard together. Sarah never complained. Not once. But as time went on, as I climbed higher in my career, something ugly started to creep into me. That I started making more money. Promotions came, recognition came. People started noticing me, respecting me. And with that came attention from women I'd never dreamed would even glance at me. Younger, flashier, bold women who looked at me like I was someone important. That's where the cracks began. Sarah was still there, steady and loyal, but compared to the excitement of this new attention, she started to feel ordinary. I hate myself for even saying that now, but that's exactly how I felt. I convinced myself that I deserved more, that after years of hard work and sacrifice, I had earned the right to enjoy life. I started going out more with colleagues, staying late at work, finding excuses to not be home. Sarah noticed, of course. She'd ask me, "Michael, are you okay? You've been so distant lately." And I'd brush her off with lies. "Just work stress, Sarah. Don't worry." But inside, I knew what was happening. I was pulling away from the woman who gave me everything, all because my ego told me I deserved better. Her name was Vanessa. She was a new hire at the firm where I worked. Young, ambitious, with a smile that made every man in the office stop in their tracks. And she noticed me. At first, it was harmless, or at least I told myself it was. Flirty comments, lingering looks, accidentally bumping into me at the coffee machine. She laughed at my jokes, told me how smart I was, how impressive my career was. Things I hadn't heard in years. Sarah didn't flatter me like that anymore. She didn't need to. She loved me for who I was, not for what I could show off. But my foolish heart, it craved the attention. One evening, after a late meeting, Vanessa asked if I wanted to grab a drink. I hesitated, but only for a moment. I told myself it was just one drink, just conversation. Nothing more, but one drink led to another. One conversation led to late nights, and those texts led to stolen moments behind closed doors. I crossed the line, and in that moment, I betrayed not just my wife, but myself. I thought I could handle it, that I could keep my marriage and my affair neatly separated, like two different worlds. At home, Sarah continued being the devoted wife. She'd ask me about my day, cook my favorite meals, kiss me goodnight, but I was no longer the same man. Guilt gnawed at me, but I buried it under excuses. I work hard. I deserve this. Sarah doesn't understand me anymore. Lies upon lies. Vanessa, on the other hand, fed my ego. She made me feel young, alive, powerful. She whispered things Sarah never would, about how I could do better, about how she was the one who truly saw me. The more I listened to her, the more I started to believe it. But Sarah wasn't blind. One evening, as I came home late again, she sat at the kitchen table, her eyes red from crying. "Michael," she said softly, "is there someone else?" The question hit me like a slap. For a moment I froze. My heart pounded in my chest. She knew, but instead of telling the truth, I lashed out. "How could you even ask me that? After everything I do for this family, you think I'd throw it away?" She looked down, tears spilling over her cheeks. I feel like I've already lost you." I walked away. I couldn't face her. I chose cowardice over honesty. From that day, something broke between us. Sarah stopped asking questions. She stopped waiting up for me. She stopped smiling the way she used to. But she didn't fight. She didn't scream or beg. She just pulled away quietly, like a flower closing its petals in the cold. And me? I convinced myself that meant she didn't care. That if she really loved me, she would have fought harder. That maybe I was right to drift toward Vanessa. I didn't realize that Sarah's silence wasn't weakness. It was strength. The affair continued, deeper and darker. I started spending weekends with Vanessa, lying to Sarah about work trips. I bought Vanessa gifts, expensive dinners, trips out of town. Meanwhile, Sarah worked double shifts at the hospital, exhausted, her eyes dimming more each day. I barely noticed until one night. I came home to find her suitcase by the door. She looked at me with steady, tearful eyes and said, "Michael, I can't keep living like this. I don't know who you are anymore. I love you, but I love myself too, and I won't let you destroy me." She walked out. Just like that. After 10 years of marriage, after everything we'd been through, she chose herself. And for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Fear. Because deep down, I knew she was right. I was destroying her. And maybe I was about to destroy myself too. That was the beginning of the end. What started as innocent flirting had turned into a decision that shattered my marriage. Sarah was gone, and all I had left was Vanessa and the hollow emptiness inside me. But I didn't know then. This was only the start of my downfall. When Sarah walked out that night, suitcase in hand, I told myself I didn't care. I told myself she was weak, overreacting, and that she'd come crawling back once she realized she couldn't live without me. But deep down, I was terrified. Because the truth was, she wasn't weak. She was stronger than I had ever given her credit for, and she didn't crawl back. The first morning after she left, I woke up to silence. No smell of coffee, no clatter of pans in the kitchen, no soft humming of Sarah getting ready for work. Just emptiness. I rolled over, expecting to see her, but the other side of the bed was cold. I stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours, the reality slowly sinking in. She was gone. I got up, walked around the house, and every corner screamed her presence. Her books on the shelf, her scarf on the chair, the framed photos of us smiling. During better times, I should have felt guilt, but instead, I buried it. I told myself this was freedom, that now I could finally live the life I deserved, and Vanessa was more than willing to fill that void. When I told Vanessa that Sarah had left, she smiled, actually smiled, and wrapped her arms around me. "This is the best thing that could have happened," she whispered. "You and me, Michael. We don't have to hide anymore. We can finally be together." Her words should have comforted me. And at the time, they did. We spent nights drinking, laughing, celebrating what she called our victory. She made me feel like a king, like I'd made the right choice. But late at night, when I lay awake beside her, a small voice inside me whispered, Sarah would never have smiled at your pain. She would have held you, even when you didn't deserve it. I pushed that thought away. Again and again, weeks passed. I expected calls from Sarah, begging me to come back, accusing me, screaming at me, something. But there was nothing. No texts, no voicemails, no messages through friends. It was like she had vanished, leaving me to stew in my own choices. At first, I felt relieved, then confused, and eventually insulted. How could she let me go so easily? Did I mean that little to her? The irony, of course, was that I was the one who had treated her like she meant nothing. Vanessa and I moved in together quickly. She was excited, maybe too excited. She redecorated my house, tossed out Sarah's things without a second thought, filled the space with her own flashy taste. She demanded expensive gifts, trips, dinners. She wanted to be seen. She wanted the world to know she had won. At first, I obliged. I bought her jewelry, took her to fancy restaurants, showed her off like a trophy. I wanted to believe she was worth everything I'd lost, but it didn't take long for the cracks to show. One night, after I told her I was tired from work and didn't feel like going out, she snapped, "You used to be fun. Now you're boring. What did I even leave my life for if you're just going to sit at home like some old man?" Her words cut deep, because Sarah had never spoken to me like that, not even when I deserved it. Everywhere I went, Sarah's absence haunted me. I'd walk past the hospital where she worked and wonder if she was inside, saving lives, smiling at patients the way she used to smile at me. Friends who used to invite us to dinners stopped calling. When I ran into them, they looked at me with pity, or worse, with judgment. One of them, Mark, a close friend of ours, finally said what everyone else was thinking. "Michael, what the hell did you do? Sarah was the best thing that ever happened to you, and you threw her away for this?" He glanced at Vanessa with thinly veiled disgust. I laughed it off, but his words burned, because I knew he was right. A month later, Sarah and I crossed paths by accident. I was at the grocery store, grabbing a few things, when I saw her in the next aisle. She looked tired, but different, calmer, stronger somehow. She was alone, her wedding ring gone. For a moment, I froze. Part of me wanted to run to her, apologize, beg for forgiveness. Another part wanted to act cold, to show her I was fine without her. Instead, I just said, "Sarah." She turned, and for the first time in years, her eyes looked straight through me. Not with love, not with anger, but with indifference. "Michael," she replied softly, "I hope you're well." That was it. No tears, no accusations. Just a quiet goodbye in her tone, like she had already moved on. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. She was free, truly free. Life with Vanessa grew more toxic. She pushed for more money, more attention, more proof of my commitment. I worked harder, longer hours just to keep up with her demands. But no matter what I did, it was never enough. Meanwhile, Sarah flourished. I heard from mutual friends that she had taken on extra certifications at the hospital, that she was respected, admired, even glowing. Every piece of news about her felt like salt in the wound. I had left her thinking she'd fall apart without me, but she was thriving, and I was the one crumbling. One evening, after a brutal fight with Vanessa over money, I found myself sitting in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I replayed everything in my head: Sarah's tears, her quiet strength, Vanessa's greed, my own lies. How had I gotten here? I had traded loyalty for lust, love for ego, peace for chaos. And now I was paying the price. Time, I admitted to myself. I was wrong. I had destroyed the best thing in my life, That night, I made a silent vow. If Vanessa was going to drain me dry, if my life was going to keep spiraling, then I had to take control. I couldn't undo the past. I couldn't get Sarah back, but I could make sure that Vanessa and everyone who watched me fall would one day see me rise again. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of my revenge. If I thought life with Vanessa would get easier, I was dead wrong. Every day felt like a new test, a test I kept failing. Vanessa wasn't satisfied with being my girlfriend. She wanted the world to know she had replaced Sarah. She dragged me to parties, events, dinners, anywhere she could show off. She introduced herself as Michael's partner with a smug smile, as if wearing me on her arm was her greatest achievement. At first, I played along. I smiled, I nodded, I pretended everything was perfect. But behind the smile was exhaustion. My bank account was draining, my career was slipping, and my reputation was unraveling. And people noticed. At one party, a colleague pulled me aside. "Michael, what are you doing? You used to be respected. Now people just whisper about you, about her." I brushed it off, but the words stung, because I knew they were true. The breaking point came one night at Vanessa's friend's birthday party. The room was packed with people, wealthy, glamorous, the kind who thrived on gossip. Vanessa was in her element, laughing too loudly, clinging to me like I was her prize. I tried to relax, to blend in, but then I overheard it. A group of men near the bar were whispering, their voices dripping with mockery. "That's the guy who left his wife, right? Yeah, for her? Can you believe it? She's just using him. Everyone knows it." And then the final dagger. His wife was a saint. He's a fool. I froze. My face burned. I wanted to shout, to defend myself. But I couldn't, because deep down, I agreed with them. Vanessa noticed my silence and leaned in, her voice sharp. "Don't sulk, Michael. You'll embarrass me." Embarrass her. As if I wasn't already drowning in embarrassment myself. That night, after we got home, I confronted her. "Do you even care about me, Vanessa? Or is this all just a game for you?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, Michael. Don't start with your insecurities. You knew what you were getting into. If you can't handle being with a woman like me, maybe you should have stayed with your boring wife." Her words hit like a slap. Boring wife. That's what she called Sarah, the woman who sacrificed everything for me, who stood by me through years of struggle. I stormed out of the house that night, driving aimlessly through the city. My hands shook on the steering wheel, my chest tight with rage and shame. By some cruel twist of fate, I drove past the hospital where Sarah worked. It was late, but I saw her through the glass doors, walking down the corridor in her scrubs, clipboard in hand. She looked tired, yes, but she also looked radiant, strong, respected, alive in a way I hadn't seen before. And I was the ghost. The realization hit me so hard I had to pull over. Tears filled my eyes, something I hadn't felt in years. I had traded the steady warmth of her love for the hollow fire of Vanessa's games. And now Sarah was thriving while I was decaying. That night in the car, I whispered to myself, "This ends. I don't know how yet, but this ends." I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep letting Vanessa drain me, humiliating me, parading me around like some trophy she'd won. I wasn't going to beg Sarah to take me back. I didn't deserve that, but I could take control of my life again. I could rise, stronger than before. And when I did, Vanessa would regret ever thinking she had power over me. I started small. I stopped telling Vanessa about my finances. I cut back on the gifts, the trips, the expensive dinners. At first, she didn't notice, but then the complaints started. "Why aren't we going out anymore? Why didn't you buy me the necklace I wanted? Michael, are you going broke or something? Each question fueled my resolve. Let her think I was weak. Let her underestimate me, because behind the scenes, I was planning. One afternoon, a mutual friend, Linda, called me out of the blue. She was close to Sarah and hadn't spoken to me since the split. Michael, she said sharply, do you even know how well Sarah's doing? She's been promoted. She's training younger nurses. Everyone respects her. She's glowing. And you? Look at you. What happened to you? I didn't answer. I couldn't. But her words cemented what I already knew. Sarah had won. By walking away, she had chosen dignity. By staying with Vanessa, I had chosen humiliation. That night, I looked at myself in the mirror. I barely recognized the man staring. Back, wrinkles deeper, eyes hollow, pride shattered. But beneath it all, a fire was starting to burn. I won't stay like this, I told my reflection. I won't let Vanessa destroy me the way I destroyed Sarah. I may have lost my wife, but I will not lose myself. And that was the moment I shifted. From victim of my own arrogance to a man plotting his redemption. Vanessa thought she had me trapped. The world thought I was finished, but they didn't know what was coming. Because if I had once been foolish enough to destroy the woman who loved me, I would not be foolish enough to let another woman destroy me. The game had just begun. The morning after I made my vow, I woke up different. Not free, not healed, but determined. For weeks, maybe months, I had been floating through life like a man chained to regret. But now, there was a spark inside me. A dangerous, necessary spark. The first step was subtle. Distance. I stopped answering Vanessa's texts immediately. I stopped rushing to her every demand. When she complained, I brushed it off. When she yelled, I walked away. At first, she didn't take me seriously. She thought I was sulking. But the more I pulled away, the louder her insecurities became. One night, she slammed her wine glass on the table. You're not the man I fell for, Michael. You're getting boring. I almost laughed. Boring. That was the same insult she had thrown at Sarah. The woman, I now realized, had been everything but boring. Maybe I'm finally becoming the man I should have been all along, I said quietly. Her eyes narrowed. She didn't like that. When you live with someone like Vanessa, you notice the little cracks. The whispers on her phone she quickly silences. The late nights she can't explain. The lies that slip too easily off her tongue. And I started paying attention. One afternoon, while she was out shopping, I checked her tablet. She had left it unlocked, a mistake she'd regret. Buried in her messages were conversations with a man named Eric. At first, it seemed harmless, flirty texts, compliments. But then I found photos, dinner dates, him buying her gifts, her telling him things like, Michael's losing his spark. He doesn't excite me anymore. I need someone who makes me feel alive. My hands trembled as I scrolled. Not from heartbreak, but from realization. Vanessa wasn't just toxic. She was disloyal. I sat there in silence, staring at the proof. I had left Sarah, loyal, loving Sarah, for Vanessa. And Vanessa was already betraying me. It was like life was holding up a mirror, forcing me to look at the ugly reflection of my choices. But instead of collapsing, I smiled, because finally, I had leverage. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I copied everything, the texts, the photos, the dates, into a private folder. I even printed a few, slipping them into a sealed envelope hidden in my desk. And then I started planning. If Vanessa wanted to play games, I would play too. But unlike her, I wouldn't just win the game. I would end it. There was one person I trusted to give me guidance. Richard, an old college friend who had become a lawyer. When I walked into his office, he raised his eyebrows. Michael Turner. Haven't seen you in years. What's going on? I handed him the folder. He flipped through the evidence, whistling low. Well, looks like your girlfriend has been busy. I leaned forward. Richard, I want to end this, but I want to do it right. I don't want her to take another dime from me. I don't want her to smear my name. I want her gone. Completely. Richard smirked. You came to the right person. With this evidence, she won't stand a chance. But Michael, he paused. What about Sarah? The question hit me harder than I expected. What about her? I asked carefully. She deserves to know you finally woke up. Maybe she won't forgive you. Maybe she will. But don't you think she should see you fight for your dignity, at least once? I didn't answer right away, but his words stayed with me. Back at home, Vanessa was growing restless. Michael, why are you always so quiet lately? You used to spoil me. Now you barely look at me. I forced a smile. Just tired. She bought it, for now. But I could see her paranoia building. She knew I wasn't under her thumb anymore, and that scared her. One night, she tried to seduce me, wearing the kind of dress she knew turned heads. But I looked at her differently now. Not as the woman I once craved. Not as the prize I thought I'd won, but as the reason I had lost everything that mattered. Richard gave me advice that sparked an idea. Don't just leave her quietly, he said. Expose her. Make sure everyone sees who she really is. That way, she can't twist the story against you. So I planned a dinner party. Just a small gathering with friends, colleagues, and Vanessa's closest circle. She thought it was her chance to show off again, to flaunt her perfect life with me. But for me, it was the stage where I'd finally reclaim my dignity. A few days before the dinner, I ran into Sarah at the grocery store. She froze when she saw me, her eyes widening in shock. I hadn't spoken to her in months. Michael, she said flatly. Sarah, I whispered, my throat tightening. She looked radiant, stronger than ever. She didn't need me, and I realized I admired that. I'm sorry, I said before she could turn away. I know words don't fix anything, but I need you to know I finally see who I've become. And I hate it. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Good. At least you see it now. But Michael, don't just tell me, show me. And then she walked away, leaving me with a fire in my chest. Show her. Prove it, not for forgiveness, but for redemption. On the night of the dinner, Vanessa was glowing, convinced the night was about her. She laughed too loud. She bragged too much. She clung to me like I was her prize. And all the while, I played along, the perfect host. Smiling, toasting, entertaining until the moment came. I tapped my glass. The room fell silent. Vanessa beamed, thinking I was about to praise her. But instead, I opened the folder. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, my voice steady, I think it's time you all saw the truth. Gasps filled the room as I laid out the photos, the texts, the proof of her betrayal. Vanessa's face drained of color. Michael, stop, this isn't. But the damage was done. Everyone was staring at her, judging, whispering. For the first time, she was the one humiliated. And I was free. As Vanessa stormed out, her empire of lies crumbling behind her. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not happiness, not triumph, but clarity. The man who had destroyed his marriage for a fleeting thrill was gone. The man who was humiliated, used, and broken was gone. In his place stood someone new, someone stronger. But my story wasn't over, because while I had defeated Vanessa, I still had to face the shadow of Sarah. The silence after Vanessa stormed out of that dinner party was deafening. Guests whispered in shock, eyes darting between me, and the door she had slammed behind her. I forced a calm smile. Please enjoy the rest of the evening. Dessert is still being served, but inside, my heart was pounding. Not with fear, but with a release I couldn't quite describe. For the first time in years, I wasn't the fool. I wasn't the one being laughed at behind closed doors. Vanessa was. The next morning, the phone calls began. Friends who had once admired Vanessa now apologized to me. Colleagues who had envied me whispered that they always suspected something. It was strange. For so long, I had been invisible in my own relationship, an accessory to her vanity. Now, people were finally seeing me, but Vanessa wasn't done. She showed up at the house 3 days later, her eyes wild, her voice hoarse. From crying, or maybe screaming, "You humiliated me," she shrieked, slamming the door behind her, in front of everyone. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I leaned against the table, arms crossed. I showed the truth. "That's all." She stepped closer, her face twisted in rage. "You'll regret this, Michael. I'll ruin you. I'll take everything you have left." But this time, her threats didn't shake me. Because I had Richard, and I had evidence. That evening, I met Richard again, sliding Vanessa's latest threats. Across his desk. He smirked. Classic. When people like her lose control, they lash out. But she won't get far. With what you've shown me, Michael, she has no leverage left. Then let's end it, I said firmly, once and for all. Richard leaned back, studying me. You know, I've seen men destroyed in divorce. They lose their money, their homes, their dignity. But you've done the opposite. You've turned her greed into your weapon. For the first time, I allowed myself a small laugh. Maybe I'm finally learning. Over the next few weeks, Vanessa's life unraveled. Her so-called friends distanced themselves. Eric, the man she'd been cheating with, ghosted her completely once the scandal went public. And me? I focused on rebuilding. I went back to the routines I once loved. Early morning jogs, quiet evenings with books, weekends helping at the local community center. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. Vanessa, meanwhile, kept calling, begging one day, threatening the next. I still love you, Michael. You can't survive without me. You'll regret this, everyone. Will know you're nothing without me. But her words no longer pierced me. They slid off like water on stone. One evening, as I was leaving the community center, I saw her. Sarah. She was standing by her car, holding a bag of groceries. Our eyes met, and for a moment, time froze. Sarah, I whispered. Michael. Her voice was calm, but guarded. I took a step closer. I ended things with Vanessa. She raised an eyebrow. I heard. Word travels fast when someone's life blows up at a dinner table. I winced. Yeah, that was me. For a long moment, she studied me. And then, to my surprise, she said, You finally grew a spine. It wasn't forgiveness, not even close. But it wasn't hatred either. And somehow, that gave me hope. Vanessa, however, wasn't done. A week later, she showed up again, this time with tears streaming down her face. Michael, please, she whispered, collapsing onto the couch. I made a mistake. Eric, he left me. I was stupid. But you and I, we can still fix this. We can start over. For a moment, I stared at her. This was the same woman who had mocked me, used me, humiliated me. And now, stripped of her power, she was begging. Vanessa, I said softly, this isn't about Eric. This isn't even about me. It's about you. You can't love anyone because you don't even know who you are without attention. Her eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw fear. Not of me, but of herself. And that's when I knew I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I was free. I didn't take her back. I didn't scream. I didn't gloat. I simply walked to the door, opened it, and said, "Goodbye, Vanessa." She hesitated, as if waiting for me to change my mind. But I didn't. And finally she left, this time for good. The house was silent again. But this silence wasn't empty. It was peaceful. For the first time in years, I could breathe. Weeks turned into months. Vanessa faded into the background of gossip, a cautionary tale whispered in circles that no longer included me and me. I began rebuilding bridges, slowly, carefully. With Sarah, I didn't push. I respected her space. Sometimes we'd cross paths, share small conversations, even laugh once or twice. And every time, I thought of the life I had thrown away, and the man I was determined never to be again. Vanessa's threats failed. Her mask shattered. And I, Michael Turner, finally stood taller, not because I crushed her, but because I reclaimed myself. But one final question lingered. Could I ever earn back Sarah's respect? That answer would come in the final chapter. The night was cool, with a gentle breeze rustling the trees outside my window. I sat alone, staring at the moonlight spilling across the floorboards. It had been months since Vanessa's final visit, months since I closed the door on her chaos. But as peaceful as my life had become, one thought lingered constantly in my mind. Sarah. I could rebuild my dignity. I could regain my self-respect. But could I ever earn hers? One Saturday morning, as I sipped my coffee and browsed through the paper, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from Sarah. "Family gathering tonight at Mom's. Thought you should know." For a moment I froze. I hadn't been invited to one of her family's events in years. Not since the affair. Not since the humiliation. My first instinct was to ignore it. But then I thought, maybe this was it. Maybe this was my chance to face the people I had wronged, to show them who I had become. I texted back simply, "I'll be there." That evening, I walked into her mother's house with trembling hands. The air was thick with the scent of roasted chicken and apple pie. Moment I entered, conversations hushed. All eyes turned to me. Her brothers stared with thinly veiled contempt. Her mother's expression was unreadable. And Sarah, she stood near the kitchen, arms crossed, watching me carefully. I cleared my throat. "Thank you for letting me come." There was silence. Then Sarah's mother finally spoke. "Sit down, Michael. Let's hear what you have to say." My heart pounded as I stood in front of them, every eye fixed on me. "I know I don't deserve to be here," I began. "I know I hurt Sarah. I betrayed her trust. I humiliated her. And I destroyed the family we built together. That will always be my greatest regret." I swallowed hard, forcing myself to continue. For a long time, I blamed everyone else. I blamed the stress, the temptations, even Sarah's silence. But the truth is, it was me. I chose wrong. I let arrogance, vanity, and selfishness blind me. And I paid the price. Their faces softened, just a little. But I'm not here to beg for forgiveness. I'm here to say that I finally understand something I should have known all along. Love is not about possession, or appearances, or ego. It's about respect. And when I lost respect for Sarah, I lost everything. I turned to Sarah then, my voice trembling. "You were the best part of my life. You gave me loyalty, patience, love, and I threw it away. I can't undo that. But I can promise this. The man I was then is gone. And if nothing else, I'll spend the rest of my life honoring the lesson you taught me, that real love deserves real respect." The room was still. Her brothers exchanged looks. Her mother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, and Sarah. She stood quietly, her lips pressed together. Finally, she said, "You've changed. Her words weren't warm. They weren't forgiving. But they weren't bitter either. They were honest. And for me, that was enough. After dinner, as the family dispersed, Sarah walked me to the door. "Michael," she said softly, "I don't know if I can ever trust you again. But tonight, I saw someone I hadn't seen in years. The man I fell in love with." I swallowed hard. "I don't expect a second chance. I just wanted you to know I finally see you, and I see what I lost." She studied me for a long moment. Then she gave a small nod. "Keep being that man," she whispered. "Maybe someday we'll see where it leads." And with that, she closed the door gently. As I walked away into the cool night air, my heart felt heavy, but lighter than it had in years. I hadn't won Sarah back. Not yet, maybe not ever. But I had earned something even more valuable. Myself. Vanessa's downfall. The public humiliation. The evidence. The confrontations. All of it had led me here. Not to revenge in the traditional sense, but to something deeper. Justice wasn't about destroying Vanessa. It was about becoming a man Sarah and I could respect again. If you've ever believed that respect matters more than wealth or temporary pleasure, share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. And for more powerful stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.